So brand voice is your personality, is the words you use, is the tone. It's even as long as the sentence length. When you write naturally and genuinely, you have a natural pattern and a natural personality. And so that's what brand voice is discovering all of that. And I have a discovery session that I go through with clients. And understanding how I want to show up and what my core words are was incredibly helpful.
Hello, and welcome back to the Ignition Path podcast, where we bring you small business owners and people that are entrepreneurs, and we talk about their path and everything that they're doing through their entrepreneurial ways and what they're doing now. So today I've got Patricia Viscount. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Viscount.
Viscount. Okay. So the S is silent. So Viscount.
Correct.
All right. Fantastic. I've got Patricia Viscount. I'll go ahead and let her introduce herself and give a preliminary thing about what she does. And then we'll start getting into questions about your entrepreneurial path and how you got there.
Awesome. So I am a Canadian.
That's okay. We won't hold that against you.
That's right.
Well, wait a second. We play you guys soon. I mean, this is being recorded in the middle of the Winter Olympics, so we actually don't like you right now. No, just kidding.
Oh, come on. You can have,
I think the women play today. I think the women are on the ice right now, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that we'll give you downhill skiing. We'll give you all kinds of other things, but we will not give you
We came the closest. We came the closest the last time we played when we beat you in the preliminaries, then got beat in the finals. But
yes.
For men's. But yeah. Sorry. Okay,
Yes,
I digress.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So now how do I come back from that?
Right.
I am a brand voice strategist and a copywriter for coaches and consultants now. But way back when I started, it's interesting that you should say that, because I went to university for radio and television because I wanted to be the first female hockey announcer on Hockey Night in Canada.
Oh,
So yes,
nice.
I
That's
actually went to university to take sports broadcast.
sports broadcasting, media productions. That's
Yes.
awesome.
Yeah.
That was something you didn't tell me in our pre-call. We're a big hockey family, so
Oh,
So
okay.
my son plays. Actually, my son tonight, he's like I was talking to him tonight. He's like, "Hey, you gonna be home later?" I said, "Yeah, what's up?" He goes, "I need help with my goalie pads." He's a goalie and he
Oh,
plays in
wow.
adult league. Yeah, he plays. He's 24 and he played in a little bit in college and in high school, of course, and of course growing up. So
Oh, that's
it's just
amazing.
funny that it's funny. I didn't know that you wanted to. Your aspiration was to be the first female hockey announcer in Canada.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes. Yeah, it was interesting because I took sports broadcasting in university, and you're going up against mostly men that knew every stat and every player of every sport, and you get into your own head thinking, I don't know that, but all of those things are learned, right? So
Sure. Yeah.
you can
You
learn
totally
all.
learn that stuff. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was
Exactly.
interesting because yes, I ended up doing something completely different,
Sure.
which I went into video production. And
Okay.
it's interesting because that sort of started me thinking about my entrepreneurial dream even back then.
Sure.
Because my first boss, I had a toxic boss. She was terrible.
Oh, the corporate world. I had one of those too, and I'm no longer with that company. Thank God.
And that's exactly it. And so people would come to work crying and left
Oh,
crying. And I thought, life is too short. I'm not doing this. And
right.
so I literally joined the army. So I was in the army for
Okay.
15 years.
15 or 50?
5. 15.
15. Okay. Yeah, you kind of dropped. Yeah. That's fantastic. So when you came out of the army, did you go back into the corporate world, or is that when the entrepreneurial like itch started?
I did. It's interesting. So I went back into oil and gas. So I went into the corporate world on international energy.
Okay.
And I worked in Colombia, and I supported Eastern, Southeast Asia in oil and gas. And so it was really interesting because I've always been in male dominated industries. So
Yeah.
it's been quite interesting coming out because now I mainly support women,
Okay.
coaches and consultants. And
Sure.
so it's really interesting to I do have some male clients, but it's very interesting to see that path because I also have 4 older brothers. So, I've been surrounded by men forever. Obviously, I have a husband as well. So
Sure.
yes. So I guess I'm trying to carve out my own small niche of women.
Yeah, which makes sense, and I, now that you say that too, I come from a very strong woman family.
Ah,
My mom was the kind of person where if she said jump, all of us said how high, mother, that kind of thing, and not in a bad way. It was just she demanded respect. She was in a male dominated industry with the compressed gas cylinder world
oh,
and
wow.
carved her own niche and became a force to be reckoned with. And then she became a realtor slash property owner and owned many properties. And I helped her and my dad run those properties in high school and college. But so I come from and then my sisters, they're both very strong headed women. And my wife, oh my God, don't piss my wife off, dude. No, no, so straight up. There's only 3 reasons why my wife cries, right? Someone's hurting her kid.
Yeah.
She's someone's hurt an animal, or you pissed her off. So if I get home and she's crying, I'm looking around for the kids, like I'm looking around if the dog's injured. And then if none of that happens, I'm like, uh-oh, I'm in
You're in
trouble.
trouble.
Or wait, or my next question is, are you mad at me?
Yeah. What have I done?
Right.
I don't
So
remember.
so I believe that strong women is a huge benefit to one, the entrepreneurial world, absolutely, and absolutely the strong. And one of my all of my favorite bosses, except for one, have been female. Period.
Really? That's
Absolutely.
interesting.
One of my mentors now used to be my boss, and now she's on to another department, and we have a quarterly meeting, and she's my mentor, and I confide in her.
That's
When I
amazing.
went through some mental health struggles with my first responder world, she was there
Right.
for me. I reached out to her, and then the mentorship started through everything. So
Oh,
it's,
that's amazing.
I believe wholeheartedly in strong women and doing what they need to do to benefit other men and women alike.
Yes, 100%. That's amazing. Yeah, so I went through the oil and gas for probably another I was in the army for 15 years, and then I went into oil and gas for probably another 12, and, my position got eliminated, in 2016, so I wasn't necessarily thinking about entrepreneurship, but I was thrust out into
Gotcha.
it,
Okay.
and, while I took a year off to travel, and while I was away, a former army colleague of mine reached out, and he had gone to a university, and they were looking for a communications plan, a marketing plan for his department. So he asked me if I would do something for him, and so that was my first real taste of entrepreneurship, of working with somebody that I liked and that I respected, and that I could choose what projects that I wanted to work on and the people that I wanted to work with. So instead of, being told or voluntold
Voluntold, I know what that is,
what
yeah.
you're gonna be doing, it was really eye-opening for me to see that I could work on things that I really enjoyed and that aligned with my values and that lit me
Sure.
up, and and that I could actually still pay my mortgage and my bills and all that
Right,
stuff,
right.
so
So when you went to work so when you were contacted by that gentleman, that was the start you said that was the start of your entrepreneurial path.
yes.
So you working on those projects kinda gave you that entrepreneurial itch, but that's not you're not working with and around that person anymore, are you? You've got your own thing, right? Okay.
Yes, that's right, and that
So
was the um, one project, my very first project, and it was interesting because I was in Australia and he was here in Canada. So it also gave me an idea about the remoteness,
yeah,
and being able to serve people that aren't even in your country, let
yeah.
alone in your backyard.
Welcome
So
to the COVID Zoom years, right?
yeah,
That's about the only good thing that came out of COVID was the literally no blurry lines now. There's no reason
Exactly.
we can't get on a Riverside or a Zoom or a Meets or a Google thing and have face to face and have that connection and ability to coach. I coach people all the time with my podcasting services. I coach people all the time that are remote. I've got a gal that lives in California. I had a client that lived on uh, Ireland,
Oh,
to a
wow.
couple down in Florida, and it's all a big network. And I'm introducing the Florida people to one another, and the California people to the one here in Columbus, because I do have some people that are local to me, and I can go to their actual I can be by their side and coach them too. But
Right.
that online ability, and with the ease of use, doing it on our phones now, if we wanted to,
Yes.
that has made an entrepreneur's life a dream. You know,
So much easier. Yeah, absolutely. And
yeah.
it was interesting because coming out of the army, and I was working with this gentleman who used to be in the army with me. When I went into corporate, it was an interesting thing because I had to unlearn the command and control. And as a first responder, you
Mm,
can probably
absolutely. Your
understand that.
chain of command. Yeah, the autonomy.
Exactly.
You had to find your own autonomy.
Exactly. And it was
Yeah.
interesting because one of my very first projects in the corporate world, my boss and I, and he hired me because his brother-in-law was an Air Force pilot. And so
Mhm.
he understood the transferable skills that military people could bring to the corporate world,
Oh,
the
huge.
time management, the
Yep.
project management, all of those things, the
Yeah.
accountability. And
Yeah.
so I always am very, very grateful that he took a chance on me to see what I could do. And so we were in this meeting together, and I was completely silent because in my brain, it was command and control. It was,
Sure.
the people who are speaking are the head, the
Yeah.
CEO and the senior leaders. And we came out of that meeting and he said, What was wrong?" And I said, "Well, I didn't feel
I
like
don't
I
speak unless spoken to, sir. No.
exactly. Well, and he said, "Don't you ever do that again."
I had the
He
same
said he said,
story.
"I've hired you because of your
Yeah.
expertise and
Yep.
for you to bring your experience."
Yeah.
So, he said, "I don't want." So, it was really interesting to unlearn that command and control
And that's
in the
tough.
corporate world. It
That's
is
very
abs
tough, and being an active first responder, I just got off this morning, there's things that are, I've almost been accused sometimes in the corporate world when I've dabbled in it to being OCD, and I'm like, "I'm nowhere close to OCD." However, I do want organization. And I
Yes.
have a certain way, like I need something to be where I know it is so I can go get it at 2 in the morning when I've been woken up out of bed to go to go help someone,
Yes.
breathe or do chest
Yeah.
compressions. I need to know where that thing is, so there's organization. And that kind of flowed into the corporate world a little bit. And I mean, that was one of the mentors I had that I ended up leaving there because of the rest of the stuff. They were just like, "Nope, nope, you're OCD," and I'm like, "I'm really not." Like, quit labeling me as that, because it's not flattering.
Yes.
I'm not obsessive compulsive. I just like organization. And honestly, you hired me to basically organize your product development. Like, why would you pick on me about being organized, how my desk looks? When I
Yes.
leave it for the day, because I've always been taught too, when I worked in the construction world with my dad, if I left a job site messy, it would be my right?
Yeah.
I would get my butt not really whooped, because my dad never whooped me, maybe once when I was 5, but it's one of those things, and I deserved it, trust me, I did. It was one of those things where if we didn't leave the work site organized when we came back to it, because it is nice to come back to a work site and you're like, "Oh, there's my saw. Oh, there's my measuring tape, and oh, that's where
Yeah.
I put the pencil, and it's clean, and I don't have to stumble across stuff, and the homeowner likes it that it's clean." So it makes a lot of sense for that pecking order that you're used to from the military, to
Yes.
to because you know, entrepreneurship is not always so nice and neat. Yes, we have our calendars to make our meetings. I mean, and even that, I mean, you and I have been trying to touch base, for several months because of the holidays and then other projects that we've got going on. And
Yep.
and now we're finally connected. So that and having this conversation. Before I go any further, I do want to tell people to make sure you like, subscribe, and share. If you resonate with anything that you hear in this, or you hear something that someone needs to hear this story about entrepreneur. We're going to get to a couple more questions here that dive deeper into the thought process of your entrepreneur path. But go ahead and share this episode with them. Just click that little arrow button that shares it to them and send it off. All right. So back to a question that I've been wanting to ask. When it comes to when you had that, that forceful, because I've had that too, in the medical field. I came from a Mother May I system in one of the hospitals, and I went to a hospital that had a little more autonomy. I would ask my doctors, hey, can I do this for a patient? And he looked at me the same way that your leader looked at you and said, you know what? I hired you for a reason. You know what you're doing. You've been checked off on everything. You go do your job and then tell me what you did. And
Yep.
that's basically where I want to. So expand on that. Once you got that, the gloves are off thought process. Like, what did that do to your entrepreneurial spirit and the path that you took? Like, what was that? What was that feeling, and what did you do after that?
Oh, it was amazing to be given that freedom, and also that um not just let me think of the word, the freedom and the oh, now I'm trying to trying to think of the word.
It's okay.
Let me just
Remember, I can edit all this. This
I
isn't
know,
live.
exactly. I know, that's why I'm like,
And I just put a little marker. So go
okay.
ahead.
The It gave me a huge sense of freedom, of accountability, but also it let me think and know that I mattered, and that
Yeah.
my voice mattered,
Yeah.
and
Oh my
that
gosh,
I
that's so
was able.
right.
And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
interesting because now that I'm a brand voice strategist, you
Huge.
see these things throughout your career, and you look at them, you think about them, but you don't really focus on them until perhaps years later, when you think, oh, that really helped me form what I'm doing now, or how I grew as a person or as an entrepreneur, or, that kind of thing, because that that acceptance for using my voice was huge. And when I
Right.
think about my clients who don't know how they want to show up, so they meet people at networking, or they start posting on LinkedIn, they're all over the place because they don't know how to attract their ideal audience. But when you actually dive into your brand voice and get very clear and consistent, that leads to the confidence of showing up all the time across every platform. And then your ideal client is attracted to you because of that energy and of that vibe and that consistency, because they know exactly who they're going to get every single time.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So when it comes to specifically, the brand voice strategist, talk to us more about and let the audience know what that really is. Like, I hear it and I think I understand it, but I don't want to assume of what it is. But like, dive deep into what it really means to be a brand voice strategist, and what you do for your clients.
Okay. So I've had my own business since 2016. And 2 years ago, so after 8 years of business, I was writing a piece of content, and I don't know I had an epiphany. I'm like, what am I doing? Who am I writing for? What am I writing? How am I writing? How am I showing up? And that really led me down the path of brand voice. So brand voice is your personality, is the words you use, is the tone. It's even as long as the sentence length. Like, when you write naturally and genuinely, you
Hmm.
have a natural pattern and a natural personality. And so that's what brand voice is discovering all of that. And I have a discovery session that I go through with clients. And understanding how I want to show up and what my core words are was incredibly helpful. It was really essential to my business success because now every time I write a piece of content, I look at the 9 words that I have and I think, okay, are they reflected in this piece of content? And then I think about my personality. So my personality is I'm a parent.
Okay.
And basically that means that when I talk to my audience, when I talk to you, or when I put in a LinkedIn post, I am trying to guide my clients to avoid the pitfalls that I've fallen into. And so whenever I write my content, I think, okay, is this staying within this personality? And will people recognize me if they see me across all of my platforms?
Gotcha.
So yeah, so that's the brilliant part. If I could share just a quick story, I
Sure.
had
Absolutely.
one of my clients were 2 founders of a tech startup, and we got them in a room. One of them was an older gentleman. Both of them were serial entrepreneurs. One of them was an older gentleman. He had the more strategic long-term view. The second one was a younger guy. He loved the tech. He was all about the tech. But we got them in a room and started talking to them about their co-voice, because they both had to represent this organization. And we started going through 110 words. We walk through each of these words and put them in buckets like no, maybe, important but not essential, and then there's the 9 core words. And we had to walk through every single word, and we had to explain what the word could be. So one of the words was sharp. And
Okay.
one of the gentlemen was like, okay, what does that mean? And I said, "Okay, what do you want it to mean? Because it can mean anything you want as long as you both agree on what it means.
Sure.
And then you have to agree where it fits in our buckets." And it was really interesting to see them, because, they'd started this company together. They'd spent, hundreds of thousands of dollars already, but they hadn't ever actually talked about how they wanted to show up.
Gotcha.
So I thought it's fascinating to go through this with my clients. And so
Right.
then after we do that, then we document it. So I create a brand voice guide for them. And the guide talks about personality. It talks about words that you use. It gets as granular as, when you're writing content for us, with bullet points, you start with a capital letter and you end with a period. Like it talks about everything that somebody like a copywriter or a VA or AI would do when creating content for your organization. So
Gotcha.
I call it discover, document, delegate. So
Okay. Well, that's incredible because that's a little. I mean, that feels like a little insight of how your process works and what you do with your clients, and
Mhm.
that's what people are wanting when they tune into our podcast here is they want to what's the missing piece in their entrepreneurial path. Some people need to hear the beginning part of the story. Some people need that missing link. That wait a second, my brand voice is null and void, and so or it's non-existent. Okay, this is somebody important that I should probably reach out to. So when it comes to if you're out there listening to this podcast and you don't have a brand voice or it's just things just aren't going well, I encourage you to reach out to Patricia and find out how you can have a consultation with her. She has something that she'll provide with you here, and it'll be in the show notes, of course, that will allow you to do I believe it was an assessment. Is that right, Patricia?
It's a quiz. Yeah, it's a
A
brand voice
quiz?
quiz. It's just like a dipping your toe into brand voice and getting an idea of where you want to show up and how you genuinely or naturally communicate with people. Mhm.
Right. Well, and communication is so key. I mean, I'm lucky enough to have 6 or 7 different careers under my belt, so I'm a paramedic, a respiratory therapist. I worked in the medical field as a sales rep. I sold windows and doors and patio rooms. I was a
Really?
contractor. I was a product development person, and I'm an educator when it comes to teaching people stuff and a public speaker. So I've got all these different areas that I believe 100% when I walk into a room, I've got to know how to carry myself. I've got to know how to start that conversation with people. And sometimes it's as blunt as the doctor who tapped me on the back at a conference last week thought I was someone else. And when I turned around, he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were someone else." And I just went like this. I'm like, "Nope. My name's Kyle. What's yours? We're in it." And like, but and that's not cockiness. That's brand voice that says, okay, I've got a brand, which means it's my brand is typically on anything, including podcasting. I want to educate people.
Yeah,
I'm an educator at heart without being a teacher. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So I
yeah,
believe in teaching the younger generation of the medical field. I've been in the medical field for almost 30 years,
yeah,
and we need to teach the younger generation. I'm a firm believer in teaching people how to podcast. That's why I'm a podcast producer and coach, and that's why the Ignition Path exists, because I was doing it for free for so many times with people and not getting anything out of it except for my time suck. And
right.
I someone finally was like, "Kyle, you need to charge for this." And I'm like, "Yeah, but they're my friends." And they're like, "But you have a ton of other people that could benefit from your knowledge on this podcasting world if you just, put yourself out there that you're a professional podcast producer slash coach." So it's no
Yeah.
different than what you did when it comes to brand voice and what you're promoting yourself as.
It's true, and, obviously, we do, hopefully, what we're passionate about, and so it's wonderful, that saying, "If you do something you love, you never work a day in your life." So
100%. Yep. No, I believe, and that's the good thing. I have one job I would never go back to, and that was the corporate world. Everything
ah,
else, I'm like, my wife's like, "Man, I'm kind of jealous that you like going to be on the medic. I'm kind of jealous that you were excited to go into the hospital and work the ER and see guts and gore." And she's like, I'm not that way, and so many people aren't that way. I genuinely, when I do something, because I've been in the jobs before where I am miserable and it's not worth it. I need to know that I'm either one doing something beneficial to the world or to my community. And right now, when it comes to my side gig, not being a full-time paramedic, and I'm doing podcasting and having people on like yourself and even running people's podcasts when they realize that they need a voice and a platform to put it out there, and podcasting is a wonderful way because then
mhm,
they can control their message. They don't have to rely on someone else putting out their message. They can control it, and that's my whole philosophy. And when I do that, I don't feel like I'm working. I feel like I'm
yes.
having a conversation with a new friend and a networker right now.
Yeah,
I'm not
well,
working.
exactly. That's equilibrium. And I
Yeah,
just wanted to go back to something that when you talked about your various careers, that when I started a decade ago, I didn't know what I was doing. So I think that it's important for new entrepreneurs to give themselves some grace and to try things, because for me, 10 years in, I'm still testing things.
sure.
And
Oh,
what
100%.
you
Yeah,
yeah, and what you
yeah,
start doing, I started doing communications plans and blogs and that kind of stuff, and you try it and you get some experience, but then you really see whether it's something that actually lights you up, and if it
sure.
doesn't, then
Yeah,
try something different, but
yeah.
obviously you need to still pay your
Well,
bills and
and
that kind of thing, but you still it's
yeah,
not entrepreneurship is not a one and done. If you
right.
keep learning and you keep uh evolving, and
Yeah,
I think that that's important, that people don't
yeah.
think that you need to stay where you are if you're not happy.
Right. And I'm a firm believer. I mean, this is just maybe it's my podcasting producer in me, but I'm a firm believer. If you're an entrepreneur, you have to have a podcast. Like it is like, why doesn't every entrepreneur have a podcast? Because it is the new form of networking. First of
Yeah,
all, when you do actual networking out there in the world, you know how many times I get people to come on my podcast just because I wear a shirt that says "Ask me about my podcast." And I'm like, "You got a podcast?" Like, "Yeah." "What is it about?" "Oh, you're an entrepreneur, aren't you?" "Yeah." I'm like, "Come on and tell me your story." Done.
that's very
Next
good.
thing you know, they're my client. or
Yeah.
I'm doing a podcast for them, or I'm helping them with a connection. Like, oh, wait a second, you need a brand name. I know Patricia, and I'm connecting. So I podcast for 3 reasons. One is for direct connection with the networking. 2 is to collaborate with people, and 3 well, it's actually a fourth, but 3 is to partner with someone, and the fourth is some people become direct clients. Done and
Right.
done. That's the only reason why I podcast.
Yeah.
And and this is then the fifth is the bonus. It's good information. It's
Yes.
a fun talk. I get to know people. I'm an extrovert. Like, I get energy when I meet people, whether that's online or in person. And that's who I am. And that's why I podcast. And that's
Yeah.
why I think every entrepreneur who's out there, there's a little bit of extrovert in any entrepreneur. Because if you don't have a little bit of extrovert in entrepreneurism, you're not doing it right.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
So sorry, I kind of got off on a tangent there and got on
No,
my
I think,
soapbox.
like you said, this is a conversation, and it's true. Like, I think that entrepreneurs need to have that outlet because sometimes it's a lonely place.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's great, if I run into somebody physically, like I was at a networking event a couple weeks ago, I just spur of the moment saw that right around the corner from me, my local chamber of commerce was having a lunch and learn about LinkedIn. I'm like, man, I want to know more about LinkedIn. It was $15. I paid for it online at 11:15. It started at noon.
Oh,
I got
wow.
over there with 10 minutes to spare. That's how close it was. I did my hair, put on a different shirt, and took my book bag with my note-taking device in it, and I
Yeah.
went over and I sat there. After the meeting was done, I walked up to the person. I said, "I want to do what he's doing up there to everybody in the room about podcasting." And they're like, "Wait, you want to do a lunch and learn?" I'm like, "Yeah, do you have any holes?" And she's like, "Absolutely. We always have holes for we're scrambling to find holes for a lunch and learns." There was
Yeah.
45 people in that room.
Wow.
And that was one of the smaller ones because I've been to other chamber events in years past. So being able to go to something like that and understand that there's a gap here that people aren't talking about, because like one person in the room, when the guy started talking about stuff about LinkedIn, somebody mentioned podcast, maybe me, and he was like, "Oh my God, podcasts are amazing! Like, everybody should have." Like, he teed me up. He threw me the big fat softball, right? And I'm like, "Well,
That's amazing.
anybody want to be on my podcast? Come on. I'm interviewing all entrepreneurs and small businesses, because I'll also small businesses are entrepreneurs."
Yes.
So, yeah.
Had to start
Wow, we
somewhere.
could I like we could like this your that's why I really wanted to have you on. I know we met through like a Facebook post or what have
Yeah.
you, but when I taught my pre-call with you, and I have a pre-call with everybody because I got to make sure people are a fit, and I want to make sure that the conversation is going to be interesting. When I had my pre-call with you, I was just like, man, brand voices, that's huge, because if you don't have a brand voice, you really don't have a business.
I like to
You can
think
go ahead and
so.
use that as your tag now. I'll give it to you for free.
Okay. As I scramble, write that down.
Well, I won't cut that out of the podcast. You can just go back and find the words. I'm also a little bit of a marketing guy too, so.
And a voiceover coach. I mean, really.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm not a voice. Well, I take that. I mean, as a voiceover, I'm a voiceover guy. Like, I do
Oh,
voiceovers.
okay.
However, there is a lot of voiceover coaching inside of podcast coaching, because I talk about inflection, and I talk about the mindset. I talk about the biggest thing I coach on, that I learned from my voiceover coaching from my own coach, is people go, "I can't do a podcast. I don't want to hear my voice." I'm like, "Well, I've got the fix for that, and I can cure somebody of that in one conversation. I'm not going to do it here, because
I was going to say, now I'm
that's what you
curious.
hire me for, right? No, but
Yeah,
I
that's
can cure
right.
the fact, and I can cure why you don't like your voice, and make you never think about it again in
Oh
one
my God.
conversation. And
Interesting.
then
Okay, you
I've
heard it here,
gotten
folks.
Yep, yeah, you heard it here. So give me a call. Yeah, yeah. I'll do Earl Shive voice coaching for $29.99. No. So Earl Shive was a car painting company down here in the States that was
Okay.
$99 to paint your car, and usually didn't last past the first rain. So
was going to say, doesn't sound like very good
No,
quality to me.
no, it wasn't. But that's why I'm only joking. Yes, my
Yes.
coaching is very quality, just like yours. So tell us. So let's wrap this up.
Okay.
Anything else that you want the listener to know about one, how to get a hold of you? You mentioned your quiz. Make sure let's go ahead and repeat that now, so it's fresh in their mind at the end of the podcast. And of course, I'll put the link in the notes. So go ahead and how they find you, and a little bit more about the quiz, and we'll call it a wrap.
Wonderful. So I am generally on LinkedIn. I post quite a lot on LinkedIn, and I do some stuff about brand voice, some stuff about copywriting, some stuff about just general entrepreneurship. So I find me on LinkedIn, and the show notes will have my link. And on there is a link to my brand voice quiz, and it's a quick 10 question quiz, and it just asks you a little bit about your personality, about how you have relationships with clients, that kind of thing. And then you get a brand voice type at the end, just
Hmm.
to give you a little
Is
bit
it
of an
is it
idea of
is
what it
it
is.
disc oriented or no?
No, it's
Okay.
no.
Okay. I'm like,
It's
boy,
just a fun
you're
quiz.
describing something else I know about. No.
Well, and it's interesting because I've had a lot of feedback from people that have taken it that it does truly reflect who they are. So
Yeah.
I've gotten some really great feedback about how accurate it is. So that's wonderful. But
Yeah.
if anything that I've shared today or we've talked about have made you think about brand voice or has sparked something, just please reach out via LinkedIn. I'd be more than happy to chat with you and to get to know you better.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Patricia. I really enjoyed talking with you and getting to know you better, of course, because that's another reason why I podcast is I get to know my guests better. I have my pre-call, that's the first touch, and then I typically have communication with them, and then I have the podcast, which I really get to know them better. And then, of course, when the podcast goes live, I reach out, and there's once again the podcasting world that we do for business, small business. It's multiple touches and how you build relationships. That's the key to podcasting and why everybody should have one. So I appreciate your time and I appreciate your expertise. I truly hope that people reach out to you. Please reach out to her. Make comments. If you have a comment, you think, hey, Kyle's full of crap, I don't care. Because no bad comment I never erase comments. I don't care. If it's vulgar or dangerous, I'll erase those. But I don't care. If you don't like the way my hair looks, say that. But ultimately, write it. We like comments on all of the podcasts that we do in the show notes, whether that's on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio soon, and of course, YouTube is my number one place to consume my podcast. But nonetheless, don't forget, like, subscribe, share, and you want to come on the Ignition Path podcast and tell your story, reach out to me. So, Patricia, thanks again for coming on,
Thank
and
you,
I
Kyle.
appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to Ignition Path, fueling the entrepreneurial fire.